They plotted behind my back. I let them finish digging their hole. Betrayal from your closest loved ones cuts the deepest, but revenge can be sweeter than anyone expects. My name is ZAHA. I'm 55. This is my story. I remember the first time I felt it. The chill that crawls up your spine when something doesn't sit right. I'm 55 and I've seen life's highs and lows, but betrayal from people you trust, that cuts deeper than any wound. Welcome back to your ultimate destination for gripping revenge stories, family betrayals, shocking betrayals, and emotional justice. Subscribe now and join a community, and tell us where you're watching from. Turn on the notification bell for our next story. Are you ready to witness the ultimate payback? Let's get started. It started the morning I came home early from a business trip. I had been away for 3 days, trusting my brother and my best friend, Lena, to handle things at the house. I thought nothing of it. They had always been my pillars, my confidants. But when I stepped through the front door, the air felt wrong. Too quiet. The faint smell of coffee that usually greeted me was gone. The living room looked disturbed. Not messy, but staged, like someone was trying too hard to appear normal. Then I heard it. Whispers. My blood ran cold. Are you sure she's not suspicious? Lena's voice trembled just enough for me to recognize it immediately. She won't notice anything until it's too late. My brother replied, calm, a little too calm. We just need to finish tonight. I froze. My heart pounded. Finish tonight? What could they possibly be finishing? I stepped back silently, sliding behind the corner, listening. Every word they spoke felt like a knife twisting in me. They had been planning something behind my back. Something big. Something I could feel would ruin me if I didn't act. Lena's laughter, forced and soft, sent shivers down my spine. She trusts us too much. She'll never see it coming. And that was it. That single line broke something inside me. A mix of shock, anger, and a burning need for justice. These weren't strangers. These were my blood, my friend. They were supposed to protect me, not dig a hole for me to fall into. I stayed hidden, my mind racing. Calm down. Think. Plan. I couldn't confront them yet. If I did, they'd know I was onto them, and whatever twisted plan they had would continue. I needed patience. I needed strategy. I whispered to myself. They want me to fall. Let them finish digging. And when they least expect it, they'll see me standing above the pit. My first move was observation. Every gesture, every whispered word, every glance between them. They told me more than 1,000 confessions ever could. I watched Lena pore over my papers in the study, my brother checking emails I hadn't even realized he could access. They were thorough, calculated, dangerous. But I am not someone who crumbles easily. 50 years of life have taught me patience, resilience, and cunning. They wanted chaos. I would give them truth. They wanted betrayal. I would turn it into their reckoning. I pulled out my phone, secretly recording their conversations, capturing every move. I photographed documents, emails, and notes that revealed their intentions. I didn't confront. I didn't scream. I waited, letting them believe they were winning. The clock ticked, the air thick with tension. And all the while, I felt the power shift slowly, silently in my favor. I stepped back, breathing steadily, whispering under my breath. Enjoy the illusion of control. You're about to discover that the one you betrayed is far smarter than you ever imagined. What are my brother and best friend planning behind my back? And how will I turn their betrayal against them? Watch Act 2 to see how the trap begins to close and revenge starts to take shape. The next morning, I pretended everything was normal. Breakfast was quiet. My brother, Daniel, tried to make small talk, and Lena smiled too brightly, too forced. Their laughter had that hollow edge to it, the kind that only guilty people carry. I poured myself a cup of coffee, keeping my movements slow, deliberate. Every gesture was calculated. I let them think I was oblivious, even though I had been listening, recording, observing every tiny slip they made. So how was your trip? Lena asked, chirpy like nothing had happened. I looked up at her, smiling faintly. It was fine. Productive. But I must admit, I was surprised to find the house so quiet. Her smile faltered, just for a second. Daniel shifted uncomfortably in his seat. That was the first crack. The first opening. I noticed every micro-expression. The way Lena's eyes darted to Daniel before she answered, the subtle tightening of his jaw. I just wanted to make sure things were in order. Daniel said casually, too casually. I nodded, taking a sip. Good. It's important that everything stays transparent. Wouldn't you agree? They both glanced at each other. Panic was seeping in like slow poison. And I could smell it. I let the silence stretch, feeling it grow heavy. After breakfast, I retreated to the study, pretending to check emails. But in truth, I was reviewing the recordings and photos from the night before. Lena had left some documents carelessly on the desk. One folder, labeled in my handwriting, contained financial papers. They had tried to manipulate my finances behind my back, hiding their tracks, but they had underestimated me. I leaned back in my chair, whispering to myself, they think I'm blind. They think I'm naive. But I've seen enough to know exactly how deep this goes. I started connecting the dots. Daniel's sudden interest in the property, Lena's access to private accounts. It wasn't just petty scheming. They were trying to take advantage of my trust, to manipulate me, maybe even steal from me. And they had been planning it for months. The realization made my stomach churn, but it also sharpened my focus. Revenge isn't about emotion. It's about timing, patience, precision. And I had all three. I sent a quick text to a trusted lawyer friend, pretending to discuss an unrelated matter. In reality, I was preparing for contingencies. If they made one wrong move, I'd have evidence, legal leverage, and witnesses ready. Later, as I walked past the kitchen, I caught Daniel rifling through my desk drawers. He froze the moment he saw me, guilt written across his face like a neon sign. Lena was behind him, eyes wide, trying to look innocent. Daniel. Lena. I said softly, letting the words hang. You've been busy. Too busy, maybe. Did you think I wouldn't notice? They stammered, faces pale, but I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I let the weight of my silence speak for me. Silence can be louder than any scream. And right now it was deafening. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Finish what you're doing. Make every last move. Because the deeper you dig, the harder the fall will be. Daniel's hands trembled, and Lena bit her lip. Fear was settling in. They had no idea that the trap was closing, and I was the one controlling it. Will Daniel and Lena dig themselves into a hole too deep to escape? Watch Act 3 to see how Veronica's plan begins to take hold, and betrayal meets its first real consequences. That afternoon, I walked into the living room carrying a stack of papers. My innocent mail, I told them. Daniel and Lena were in the kitchen, whispering, glancing nervously toward me as if I were a predator hunting prey. I let them see me place the papers on the coffee table, and casually turned to check my phone. I didn't need to watch them directly. They were already watching me, anticipating, thinking they could predict my next move. I caught the subtle exchange of glances between them. The quick nod Lena gave Daniel. That nod was confirmation. They were still scheming, still plotting. And that was exactly what I needed. I walked over slowly, smiling softly. Funny, I said casually. I noticed some discrepancies in the accounts. Small, subtle things. Nothing major, but enough to make me curious. Daniel's hand twitched as he poured water into a glass. Lena froze mid-step. Accounts? What accounts? Daniel asked, too quickly, too sharply. I smiled, letting my voice drop just a bit. Oh, nothing serious. But I thought it would be interesting to track every movement for a week. See what's going on. Transparency, you know? They didn't respond. Their silence was telling. Their fear, subtle but growing, was palpable. They had underestimated me. They thought I was distracted, naive, too old to catch the subtleties of their plot. That evening I set my trap. I accidentally left my laptop open in the living room, connected to the home network. The files were bait, fake transfers, fabricated evidence of a large inheritance supposedly going to an offshore account. I knew Daniel and Lena would be unable to resist. Sure enough, late that night, I heard the faint creak of the study door. I stayed in the shadows, my pulse steady, heart racing with anticipation. Daniel entered first, eyes scanning, fingers trembling as he opened my laptop and started copying the data. Lena followed, whispering under her breath, "Hurry before she comes back." I stepped forward, hands on my hips, and said softly, "Interesting choice of files." They froze. Daniel's eyes widened. Lena's jaw dropped. "Veronica." "Oui." Daniel stammered. I shook my head slowly. "No, you don't get to explain yet. Not now. You've just proven exactly how deep your deceit goes. And that will cost you." I pulled out my phone and showed them a live recording of their whispers, their scheming, every incriminating word perfectly captured. Their arrogance shattered into fear. "Do you see now?" I asked, voice calm, almost serene. "You thought you were clever. You thought I wouldn't notice. But patience, observation, they are far stronger weapons than lies." Lena started to sob quietly, and Daniel's face went pale. We didn't think you'd catch us," he whispered. I let a small, cold smile spread across my face. "Oh, I caught you. I'm watching." And the next step is where you learn that digging your own hole is only the beginning. Will Daniel and Lena survive the trap Veronica has set? Or will their betrayal finally begin to unravel? Watch to see how her plan escalates, and justice inches closer. The next morning, I could feel the tension lingering in the air like smoke from a long-extinguished fire. Daniel and Lena moved carefully, almost theatrically, pretending everything was normal, but the subtle quivers in their hands, the quick glances toward me, gave them away. I sat at the kitchen table, sipping my coffee slowly, watching them from the corner of my eye. The calmest moments always carry the heaviest weight. The suspense, the anticipation of the fall that's coming. "So," I said lightly, breaking the silence, "did you sleep well?" Daniel swallowed hard. "Yes. Fine." Lena's laugh was nervous, fragile. "Lovely night, yes." I smiled faintly, letting the calm facade settle over them like a gentle, deceptive fog. Inside, I was calculating, planning, setting the stage. I had their fear. Now I needed to guide it, to make it work in my favor. I decided to escalate. I had a meeting at the office but pretended I was leaving for hours. Before I went, I left subtle reminders of my knowledge in their paths. Open files, highlighted notes, sticky notes with pointed questions. "Where is the transfer going? And did you double-check these accounts?" Then I left, watching them from the window. Daniel fidgeted with the papers. Lena whispered under her breath. They were unraveling already, trying to cover tracks that didn't exist. Every movement, every whispered word, confirmed their guilt and their panic. Back at the office, I received a call from a trusted friend, an investigator. I had secretly involved them, providing subtle instructions to monitor any suspicious activity. "They've taken the bait," my friend whispered over the line. "Now it's just a matter of timing." I returned home in the evening, pretending to be tired, exhausted from work. They greeted me politely, but the tension in their posture was impossible to hide. I could practically feel the anxiety rolling off them in waves. I poured a glass of wine, sitting down at the table. "You know," I said casually, "sometimes people underestimate the quiet ones. Sometimes they think patience is weakness. But patience is preparation. And preparation is power." Daniel's hands shook as he reached for his drink. Lena's eyes were wide, darting nervously to the corners of the room. "You've made mistakes," I continued softly, almost conversationally. "But it's not too late to correct them. Transparency, honesty, it's simple really. But first you need to admit it, all of it. Every hidden plan, every deceitful thought." Their silence screamed guilt. And that's when I dropped the bomb, the envelope. Thick, heavy, lying on the table. Inside, copies of the evidence I had gathered, emails, recordings, notes, and a plan I had traced of their conspiracy. Daniel froze. Lena's mouth opened, but no sound came out. I leaned forward, voice dropping to a low whisper. "You thought you were clever. You thought I'd never notice. You were wrong. And now you are in my hands. Your next move decides everything. One false step, and everything you thought you owned, everything you thought was hidden, will be exposed." They looked at each other, eyes wide, the fear and realization dawning fully. The web was tightening. Their betrayal, once a secret, was now on the brink of public unraveling. Will Daniel and Lena finally confess? Or will they try one last desperate move to escape the trap ZAHA has set? Watch to see the stakes rise. and the first consequences of their betrayal unfold. The tension in the house was unbearable. I could feel it clinging to the walls, thick and suffocating, like fog rolling through a silent town. Daniel and Lena barely spoke, their eyes avoiding mine as if fear alone could shield them from the inevitable. I poured myself another cup of tea, deliberately slow, savoring the ritual. Every sip a reminder that I controlled the rhythm of the house now. Every word I spoke would be measured, every movement deliberate. I had the upper hand, and they knew it. I was thinking. I started, letting my voice trail off, giving them space to panic. Perhaps it's time to review some agreements. Daniel tensed, his knuckles white on the counter. Agreements? He asked cautiously. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed, voice calm. Yes. Agreements. Remember all those small favors you helped yourselves to while thinking I wasn't paying attention? It's time to bring them into the light. Lena swallowed hard, lips trembling. We didn't take anything serious. I let a faint smile cross my face. Ah, but you did. And now it has consequences. Every secret, every plan, every betrayal, all of it will be addressed. I called my lawyer friend again, instructing him to start sending formal notices. Daniel and Lena's faces paled as they realized this wasn't a threat, it was action. Evidence in hand, legal leverage in motion. I walked past them, my heels clicking on the floor. You know, the first step toward redemption is acknowledgement. But that's not enough. You must understand the depth of what you attempted. The depth of betrayal. And the lesson is about to begin. Daniel's hand twitched, almost like he wanted to run. Lena's eyes filled with tears, but there was no escape. Every move they made had been recorded, every word spoken captured. The walls weren't just walls anymore. They were witnesses. Later that evening, I staged a small dinner, pretending everything was normal. The table was set, candles flickering softly. We eat together, I said. Because even in betrayal there is still reflection. They tried to make small talk, but the tension was palpable. I interrupted gently, voice low and deliberate. Do you remember the first time you betrayed my trust? Lena froze. Daniel's fork clattered against his plate. I don't. I remember, I said softly. And I recorded it. Every word, every glance, every secret plan you thought you hid from me. And tonight, the consequences begin. Not with anger, but with truth. I handed them both envelopes, copies of all the documents, recordings, and emails I had collected. This is your mirror, I said. Look at it. See the reality of what you tried to do. Their hands shook as they opened them, eyes widening in horror. The depth of their betrayal was exposed, not just to me, but to themselves. I leaned back, voice calm, almost gentle. And this is just the beginning. The next steps will teach you about accountability, honesty, and the value of trust you so carelessly threw away. Ignore it, and the consequences escalate. Understand it, and maybe, just maybe, you can begin to repair the damage you've done. Will Daniel and Lena finally accept responsibility? Or will they make one last desperate move to escape the trap? Watch Act 6 to see Veronica push their betrayal to the breaking point, and how her revenge takes full form. That night, I barely slept. Not out of worry, but because the anticipation was electric. I could feel it. The moment when their arrogance and deceit would finally collide with reality. Every second that passed brought them closer to the point of no return. Morning light filtered through the curtains, soft and deceptive. I brewed my coffee slowly, deliberately, and walked into the living room where Daniel and Lena sat, pretending to read the newspaper. Their composure was paper-thin, fragile as glass. Good morning, I said lightly, letting my tone linger measured. Sleep well. Lena dropped the newspaper, startled. Daniel's hand froze mid-page. Their eyes flicked to me, guilt sharp and obvious. Yes, Daniel said too quickly, voice strained. I walked past them, slow, deliberate steps. You must realize trust isn't just given. It's earned. And you, my dears, have squandered it. Yet you seem confident that everything can go back to normal. Curious. I sat down across from them, leaning in slightly, letting the weight of my gaze settle. Do you know why I didn't confront you immediately? Because I wanted to see how far you would go. How deep your plotting would sink before you realize the water is rising. Daniel swallowed hard. Lena's lips quivered. I could almost hear the panic thrumming through their veins. Every subtle movement, every hesitation, spoke louder than words. Tonight, I said softly, leaning back, voice calm, we are hosting a little gathering. A small dinner, just family and close friends. Their eyes widened. Family gathering? Lena asked, voice shaky. Yes, I replied, voice smooth, almost casual. Friends, neighbors, and a few who should know the truth. Daniel's hand shook as he gripped his coffee cup. Lena's face drained of color. Veronica, what are you saying? I smiled faintly. I'm saying that secrets, when they are exposed, have a way of finding their audience. Tonight, your betrayal meets its witnesses. They looked at each other, fear pooling in their eyes. That's when I knew the reckoning had begun. I wasn't just holding evidence. I was orchestrating a scenario that would force them to confront the full weight of their actions. The evening arrived. Guests trickled in, smiles polite, unaware of the storm about to unfold. I guided Daniel and Lena to the living room. Stay calm, I whispered under my breath. Everything is about to be revealed. I handed my friend the envelope with the compiled evidence, instructions to share it discreetly but effectively with the right people. The subtle shock, the rising tension in the room, it was perfect. Lena's hand shook as I poured her wine. Daniel's posture stiffened. They had no idea how thoroughly I had anticipated every step. Every word, every action they thought was hidden, was now in my control. I smiled softly, raising my glass. To honesty, and to lessons learned the hard way. Will Daniel and Lena finally face the truth tonight? Or will they try one last desperate act to hide their betrayal? Watch to see ZAHA confront them directly and force the ultimate confession. The room felt electric, heavy with anticipation. Guests chatted lightly, but I could sense the tension radiating from Daniel and Lena. Every glance they stole at me, every twitch of their hands, betrayed a panic they tried desperately to hide. I stood slowly, letting my gaze sweep across the room. I have something to share, I said, voice calm, almost casual, letting it sink into every corner of the room. It's about trust, loyalty, and the cost of betrayal. Daniel's hand went to his face. Lena's lips quivered. I could see their minds racing, calculating, hoping to find an escape that didn't exist. I gestured toward my friend, who discreetly handed me the envelope containing the full evidence. I opened it in front of everyone, emails, recordings, photos, financial documents, all meticulously compiled. The room fell silent, guests sensing the gravity of what was about to unfold. Some of you may know me as calm, patient, composed. I continued, my voice steady, each word deliberate. But patience doesn't mean ignorance. And composure doesn't mean acceptance of treachery. I turned toward Daniel and Lena. You thought I wouldn't see. You thought your deceit was clever, hidden beneath the facade of friendship and family. But walls have ears, eyes, and witnesses. And tonight, the truth speaks louder than any lie you ever told. Lena gasped softly, clutching her glass. Daniel's face went pale. Veronica. He began, but I cut him off with a raised hand. Don't. Not yet, I said firmly. First, everyone will see what has been done. And then maybe, just maybe, you will understand the magnitude of your betrayal. I held up one recording, played it softly on the speaker. Lena's whisper, Daniel's admission, their plotting, their scheming. Every word crystal clear. Guests shifted uncomfortably, eyes wide. The air was thick with disbelief and tension. I watched them squirm. Their arrogance, once bold, now crumbling into fear. And I felt the satisfaction of control. The quiet power of knowing the truth was finally revealed. I closed the envelope and let silence linger. Do you understand now? I asked softly, voice carrying just enough for everyone to hear. Do you understand the cost of what you tried to do? Daniel's voice cracked. I never meant for it to go this far. Lena whimpered, tears streaking her face. We thought we were helping. We didn't. I shook my head, a mixture of sorrow and steely resolve in my eyes. Helping? You call this helping? Betraying the trust of someone who loved you? Someone who believed in you? No. This was manipulation, deceit, theft of integrity. And you must face it. The guests murmured, some nodding, others shocked into silence. My friend began handing copies of the evidence discreetly to key family members, ensuring the betrayal could no longer be hidden. Even if Daniel or Lena tried to spin their story, I stepped closer to them, voice calm but firm. Consider this your final lesson. The consequences of deceit are not just legal. They are personal, social, and moral. And tonight, you feel every one of them. Will Daniel and Lena finally own up to their betrayal? Or will they try one last desperate move to escape accountability? Watch Act 8 to see the ultimate turning point in Veronica's journey, and the start of true justice. The room was silent now. The tension was suffocating, like a storm about to break. Daniel and Lena stood frozen, realizing the magnitude of exposure that awaited them. Guests were whispering, some glancing at each other, sensing the betrayal but unsure how deep it went. I walked slowly toward them, each step deliberate, letting them feel the weight of my presence. You see, I said softly, voice calm, almost hypnotic, secrets have a way of surfacing. Lies have a way of unraveling. And the higher you climb on deceit, the harder you fall when truth catches up. Daniel swallowed hard, voice trembling. ZAHA, please, it's not like that. I raised a finger, gently but firmly. No, Daniel. It is like that. Every move you made, every plan you hatched behind my back, it is all here. I gestured to the evidence spread across the table. The recordings playing softly in the background, emails highlighted, financial transfers meticulously tracked. Lena's eyes filled with tears. We didn't think. You didn't think exactly, I interrupted, voice soft but cutting. You assumed silence meant ignorance. You assumed manipulation would go unnoticed. And now you are paying the price. I turned slowly to the gathered family and friends. Trust is sacred. Betrayal is not easily forgiven. Tonight you have witnessed the consequences firsthand. Their panic became visible. Daniel's shoulders slumped, and Lena clutched her hands to her chest, trying to hide the shaking. They had been confident, arrogant, thinking they could play their game without consequences. But the web had closed. I stepped closer, voice firm, voice personal. And here's the truth you will never forget. Betrayal has no allies. It isolates. It exposes. And it falls back on you when least expected. I let my gaze linger on them, watching as fear and regret flooded their expressions. The room felt electric, each breath a reminder that control was mine. They had underestimated me, underestimated patience, underestimated the quiet power of observation and planning. Then I spoke the words that sealed the moment. You will face accountability, not just from me, but from everyone who now knows the truth. Your choices have consequences, and they are unavoidable. Daniel's face twisted in shame. I understand. Lena sobbed openly. I never wanted this. I shook my head gently, almost pitying. It's not about what you wanted. It's about what you did. And now you must live with it, and learn from it. Consider this your final lesson. The recordings continued to play in the background, echoing their words and revealing every deception. Guests murmured quietly, some nodding, some staring in disbelief. The weight of exposure pressed down on Daniel and Lena like stones. I walked to the window, letting the silence speak for me. Outside, the world continued, oblivious, but inside justice had been restored. Every lie had been revealed. Every betrayal had been confronted. And now the fall, the reckoning, was complete. Will Daniel and Lena finally face the consequences fully? Or will there be one last twist before justice is served? Watch to see how Veronica ensures the ultimate resolution. The morning sunlight spilled into the living room, soft and deceptive, as if nothing had happened. But I knew better. The house was charged with the echoes of the confrontation, the weight of revealed secrets, and the quiet hum of justice finally taking root. Daniel and Lena were sitting at the table, heads bowed, hands intertwined, defeated yet aware that their reckoning was far from over. Their silence spoke louder than any words. They had understood, at last, that every betrayal has its price. I approached slowly, letting my footsteps announce my presence. You've had time to think, I said softly, voice calm but edged with steel. Do you understand why this happened? Why your lies, your scheming, brought you here? Daniel's voice broke. Yes, we realize now. We were wrong. Lena nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. I never thought it would get this far. We were selfish, foolish. I leaned against the counter, watching them closely, feeling the power shift finally settle. It's not just about admitting guilt, I said gently. It's about understanding the depth of betrayal and committing to change. Trust is fragile. It can be rebuilt, but only through honesty and effort. That's your path now. I handed them each a small stack of documents. These are the records of what has been exposed. Keep them. Learn from them. And know this. The moment you deceive again, the consequences will be absolute. Daniel swallowed hard. We understand. And we'll fix this. Lena whispered, voice shaky but sincere. We'll do whatever it takes. We can't undo the past, but we'll make it right. I nodded slowly, feeling a sense of calm wash over me. For weeks, I had carefully orchestrated this, patient and vigilant, watching every move, anticipating every lie. Now it was complete. Justice had been served, not in anger, but in truth. I turned to the guests who had stayed discreetly in the background, observing the final moments. This, I said, voice soft yet commanding, is a lesson for all of us. Betrayal, secrecy, and deception carry weight. Confrontation isn't always immediate, but truth will surface, and those responsible must face it. The room was silent, save for the occasional whisper of acknowledgement. The atmosphere was heavy, yet there was relief, a sense of closure. My family and friends understood that the deception had ended, that honesty and accountability were restored. I walked past Daniel and Lena, placing a hand lightly on the back of the chair. This is your chance to make amends, I said, voice calm but firm. Use it wisely, because the next step is entirely yours. They nodded, humbled, finally grasping the lesson that deceit has a price. And for the first time in weeks, the tension in the house began to lift. The storm had passed, leaving clarity and accountability in its wake. I stepped to the window, looking out at the world, feeling the weight of weeks of careful planning lift off my shoulders. Justice had been served, not through revenge alone, but through patience, observation, and the power of exposing truth. And in that quiet, I realized something profound. Control, vigilance, and courage had not just saved my peace. They had restored the integrity of my life. ZAHA faced betrayal, deceit, and manipulation. But through patience, cunning, and courage, she restored justice. What would you do if your family betrayed you? Comment below, share your thoughts, and subscribe for more stories of betrayal, revenge, and ultimate justice. Thank you so much for watching my story all the way to the end. Your support means everything. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts.